Good Monday afternoon, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, coming on the air with a severe thunderstorm warning, including the Interlachen area here until about 3:45. I know we already had some nasty weather around Green Cove Springs here this afternoon. It really happened. The worst of it maybe before a warning got issued there, as we're still having an issue with some radar coverage towards some of our areas. But let's just go ahead and kind of zoom on in here right now toward our other Doppler perspective here to show you the storm accent around Interlachen, moving on in right now there toward parts of Putnam County. Also a small sliver of Bradford included in this, a little bit of Clay. Also talking about a little bit there really of Alachua and Marion. So, but it's predominantly about Putnam County and the Interlachen area right now with a severe thunderstorm warning to 3:45. At about 3:20, a severe thunderstorm was located around Florhome or around Interlachen, moving south at 15 miles an hour. 60-mile-an-hour wind gust, quarter-size hail possible. Interlachen, Melrose, Hawthorne, Georges Lake, Lake Geneva, Florhome, Melrose Landing, Orange Springs, Hollister, and Hog Valley. So again, we have the potential for some damaging winds right there. Just on velocity kind of tells the story. Could have some wind enhancement moving toward Interlachen right now, right there around State Road 100. As we're looking at things, they're definitely getting this accent here as we're tracking things there. That road that takes it in to Palatka, but you also have a situation, the road that takes you into Interlachen, State Road 20 here. We're having some issues down there, maybe even more so. So, State Road 100 up here, State Road 20 here, as we're just continuing to give you guys the very latest here on the situation this afternoon. So, we're definitely watching this activity. I know you just got to be really careful. Some of these roads, already maybe you have reduced visibility at times and add the rain to it here. That really causes problems. That really can lead to accidents here, and that's something to really be cognizant of. So let me go ahead and zoom out real quick. I do see a severe warning outside of our area in central Florida now toward parts of Orange County. You see this warning just popping on the screen there, including areas like Orlando there, and Ocoee, and Winter Garden, and Windermere, and Bay Lake. So just continuing to track that situation very carefully. Let me go ahead and switch back to the storm accent up here, though. Quite a bit of it. You have this moving toward Interlachen there. You also have some accent there northeast of Bellevue that looks pretty strong with an advisory. Here's the damage, report there toward Green Cove Springs. A tree was downed on power lines along Leonard C. Parkway. Leonard C. Taylor Parkway there, and that happened around 2:45, and there's a gust of 63 miles an hour about that same time on a weather station, a personal weather station. And then you see an advisory further off toward the north toward parts of Duval, Nassau especially, some strong accent in toward southeastern Georgia as well. And in west of Tallahassee, we have an advisory here for parts of Liberty and Leon and the like. And then you see some more lightning here toward Franklin County. Just to be whenever thunder roared, you gotta go indoors, especially after everything that's happened with the lightning around here lately. It's gotta be really cognizant here of what's going on as we're looking at the overall situation. So, and then some of that in northeastern Marion looks pretty strong as we get further outside of that warning even. So that may end up getting a warning here pretty soon. We shall see some lightning in western Bradford County around the Brooker area here. Right now, you just got to be mindful of that. But our focus is this one yellow box on the screen. This severe thunderstorm warning here until 3:45 is pretty short-lived. Sometimes there's a pulse up and then pulse back down. I know this is a pretty rainy pattern now, pretty stormy pattern as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. And you're just going through all the different, tools here in the toolkit. Let me go ahead and look at some things. You see how warm it is in a lot of our backyards. 97 Tallahassee, 97 Perry, 97 Live Oak. It is sweltering, out there as we're just looking at things and tracking things here. Just not fun conditions here at all as we're looking and as we're tracking things. We're down to 78 degrees to start because we picked up a good bit of rain today. So. 0.6 of an inch here east of Stark, in fact, on my rain gauge. You see the marginal risk for the dark green continues, and then we have tons of instability here. So you have to be mindful of that, obviously, as we're tracking things. Just very important to keep in mind. But I do see our one warning that we were tracking here. It looks like it's just dropped off the board, and they're saying that it's going to expire at 3:45 as the storm was prompted. A warning has weakened below severe limits and no longer poses an immediate threat to life or property. Therefore, a warning will be allowed to expire. However, gusty winds and heavy rain are still possible with this thunderstorm. So that's kind of the storyline with that. Then that's weakening a little bit enough to drop that warning. And now let's see that warning down to our central Florida here. We see between Windermere and Bay Lake, you see some pretty strong winds. That's not in our area, but I just wanted to say that to you for just a second. That seems to be moving off toward the south and east there. So Kissimmee may have to watch out here the next little bit, depending on exactly what kind of direction this goes in. As they kind of scrub back and scrub forward, you kind of see how bright some of that was. And now coming on into the picture there, could end up being close to St. Cloud later. We'll see if it holds together that long or not. Sometimes this time of year we won't have stuff hold together to that degree. But as we go back to velocity here, it's kind of hard to see some stuff. Again, having to look a little bit further up on here. But again, just trying to give you guys the very latest here to protect you, your friends, and your family. Another storyline we need to talk about while we are on the air here this afternoon. You know, we're kind of on the periphery of a spin here. That's off toward our east, and quite honestly, we may, it was looking, less likely yesterday, it might maybe happen later on for the regional, slash national threat relay, Louisiana or something down the line. Maybe this were to develop as it got in the Gulf and moved off toward Louisiana, but now there's a chance that what we're tracking toward the east of us may develop before it really gets into Florida tomorrow here. Now that it may sound worse than it actually will be, because, at worst it'll be a tropical storm. May not, even be a tropical depression, though. It'd be a weak tropical storm, worst case scenario, it seemed like here at this point. But we're close to turning the logo red. I know there's only a 20% chance, according to the Hurricane Center, of development within 48 hours. But it is, trying to get that together now. That center of circulation, if it can kind of develop around the thunderstorm axis, that's something that we really have to keep our eyes on. And you see it more down toward central Florida's way right now. There's a chance that it kind of, fluctuate a little bit here, or the accent around it anyway. As this is a rapidly evolving situation, it might be kind of hard to pin down into the last second when we're, within 24 hours of whatever that is, crossing the state here, the center circulation, and the like. You see that blue circled area here, that is a mesoscale discussing what's unlikely here. But we could have some more severe warnings we'll have to watch and, monitor. So, again, just continuing to track things here in the weather center. Let me go and pull up rainfall here. You see toward Bradford County, some of these blue spots, the lighter blues, getting closer to an inch. Some of these purples over an inch there toward maybe almost 2 inches toward I-95. So that's kind of intriguing to see here as we're tracking things here in the weather center, obviously. And let me go and put up our forecast model, though. See how far this goes at it. It only is, the ARRR is not going out really far. The latest one we'll put up, see what we can kind of gather from it as we get toward the night. I know it's not a tropical model, but such a short range here at this point. But it does seem to want to, get some convection going around here. Maybe southeast of Melbourne, the Brevard County coastline there. I'm going to go ahead and back this up here just a little. I want to see a longer run of this. And this is, maybe this is 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4, 5, 6. You see how it sustains convection there in the nighttime at least. And that has it on towards central Florida now. I have to go back even a little bit further with this here. Let me go ahead and I have to go to a model. Let's see here. We'll go to 8 a.m. tomorrow morning on the extended run from the 12Z. This is fully loaded in our computer here. But see, some of that's kind of coming across here. This is around noon tomorrow. Doesn't look as organized on that, maybe, but we shall see. That kind of broaden it. You know, maybe some type of tropical depression, not completely out of the question here, as we're looking before it even crosses Florida. But the bigger chance would still be in the Gulf, a much bigger chance of development at this point in my assessment. On the Hurricane Center, I think it only has 30%, but I think it probably will develop into something in the Gulf here. The Florida aspect's still pretty iffy, you know, because it would have such short time to do it. And if it did develop, it would be pretty weak and disorganized. But you know, in the Gulf, it could be a much different story. It could organize. There's a chance it could be a stronger tropical storm even heading toward New Orleans as we look ahead here toward, you know, late weeks. You know, this goes out to early Wednesday morning here as you see all that convexing in toward the Gulf. It's not really organized on this view, but that could, you know, kind of shift around and change here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. So I'm going to go ahead and see what else we might have here. I'm going to see another motor radar was down. It's back up. We can see that here. See a good bit of, you know, wind and spin out there. It looks like trying to get us out together. Not overwhelming by any stretch, but we'll just have to kind of continue to watch things here as we're looking at the situation. I know we have the action locally developing on the periphery here. You know, it's not exactly the tornadic side of things, but you can definitely get some wind enhancement. Definitely get some wind enhancement here with the instability in play and then a low to the east. Pressure east is dark 1016 millibars, so you know it's a little bit low, you know, comparative for what you might see on a lot of summertime days. Not really low by any stretch, but still, you know, it is, you know, comparatively low. As we continue to give you guys the latest, we're always watching out for 62 counties, of course, here, giving you guys the very latest on what's going on. So, again, we're just continuing to monitor things, continue to track things here. You know, we're continuing to do all that for you guys. Let me go ahead and see what else we might have here. Just looking at some of the other information. Jumping back over to that one mode, and let's go ahead and jump over to the other mode, and I'll zoom out real quick. You're going to see we have like flash flood warning, Axon, North Carolina. Considerable threat was around Gulliford County there. If I'm pronouncing that right, I might not be, but that's toward Greensboro. They've had some rain, you know, Chantal yesterday, today, and more flash flood warnings further up toward like Pennsylvania and the like, and some of those other states in that region. You know, even areas like in parts there, you know, to zoom out, parts of New Jersey. So that's definitely a storyline there as we're looking at, as we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. So you see out toward New Mexico some flash flood warnings as well in there. So you have to be very mindful of what's going on. You see a little bit of an enhancement here southeast of Folkestone. We'll watch that in Nassau County. Some more stuff just north of our area. So we're just continuing to watch. Sometimes when these little triangles fill in, that indicates some strengthening, even if it's not really for the hail directly, even though that's what it's supposed to indicate. It can indicate a storm, you know, is strengthening, the axis is strengthening. So we'll just have to continue to monitor things here. I know we have the interactive radar there on Clutter.com as we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. We have all the different platforms we need to jump on here, you know, and to jump on to as needed. Posting on Facebook and Twitter /X with some morning information if we don't actually need to jump in with a live video update. But again, I think that's going to wrap it for now. We'll pop back in here as warranted, if warranted. And obviously, if we get something to develop tropically closer toward Florida, then, you know, that'll become a bigger storyline as we're looking at things and we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. I know it's not expected to be this overwhelming, but we definitely could have some flash flooding concern here further down in the state. Okay, we just got a warning for Nassau and Charlton. We're going to keep it here just a little longer then. But I'm going to jump, back to this here in just a sec. But let me go ahead and go over to our graphic system here, our graphic source. As we do have the names here up. Obviously, Dexter is the next name to talk about here. We got through the, first few. We got through them there. Now we have Dexter, so that, could be what we were talking about here. Pretty quickly, maybe we shall see. But yeah, flash flooding the possibility towards some spots here as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. It's, not an overwhelming threat, but, well, the radios can help get those alerts. It was a really, escalated threat to go up on the wireless emergency alerts here on your phone as well. So, of course, we'll let you know on all our different platforms as well about any flash flood warnings for our area here as soon as they happen. But as we go ahead and jump on over right now, this is that new warning that just popped up in the last few seconds here. It does include areas east of Hilliard especially. So we had the one warning, more toward north central Florida there. This one dips, into even southeast Georgia a little bit as we're tracking things that we're talking about northwestern Nassau and southeastern Charlton counties until 4:30. At 3:45, a severe thunderstorm is located near Keens Ferry or near Hilliard, moving south at 15 miles an hour. Hilliard, Callahan, St. George, Ratliff, Keens Ferry, Nassau Village, Ratliff, underneath this warning. So a new severe thunderstorm warning now to 4:15 for portions of the area. So at least for a moment, I'm going to see how it trends. We're going to keep it here, though, for at least a little bit longer. Looking at power outages across the area, a little over 1,000 customers in New York and Duval County right now, 51 in Nassau, 138 in Putnam, 52 in Alachua, 198 in Clay, 28 in Marion. And so you kind of get the idea. We're in Bradford, 9 customers. Again, we had some storminess earlier on, not really overwhelming. Maybe one close lightning strike where we're at, but that's why you got to be really careful, of course. But nothing really, just completely overwhelming. And we're watching this storm here right now, though, northeast of Hilliard. Some wind enhancement here. It's moving south. Toward like Callahan, maybe eventually northwest part of Duval County. So again, I would just have to continue to track this situation here. I'm going to all the different sources here this afternoon, trying to keep everybody up to date. So I know, just trying to go through here and look at everything. I know people watching like on Twitter/X talking about the situation as we're looking at things, as we're tracking them. I know, we're getting more rain in Texas, and we're having situations here where they've had more concern once again there toward the Lone Star State. Let's go ahead and look out that way here. We had over the last 12 hours out that way a lot more rain in some of these spots, not in the exact hardest hit areas, but it's just crazy how we keep getting this development of Storm Axon. I know around Kerrville, Kirk County, it's been less in the last 12 hours. Still some problems as you get to the west and enter too, but further back toward the south and west, some of these yellows are indicative of 7, 8, 9, 10 inches of rain, which is very concerning. You see some of these areas with the Eagle Pass. As you look in there, you have between Brackettville and Dabney, and then you have other spots there south and west of Vanderpool. As you're looking at things there, so that kind of tells a story. That's significant rain. Some south of Dallas here, 3, 4 inches, maybe 5. Cleburne, south there, pretty highly populated areas like Cleburne getting into a good bit there. A little less than Tarrant and Dallas counties, but still a couple there inches last 12 hours. So that can definitely lead to some flooding. But as we get back close to home here, as we look at the situation, here, we're just continuing to monitor everything here for you, obviously. It's all about protecting you, your friends, your family. We're just trying to keep you guys up to date. I'm going to zoom back out for a sec. Just take that off. Go to the infrared if we can. And is the infrared not wanting to load, or do I have it set wrong? Let's see. I guess it doesn't want to load right now. Okay. It's giving us some problems, but okay, we can do it with visible at least, so I'll pull that up. You can see some of these, developing storm clouds, I guess you could call them here. Developing thunderstorms, I probably should say, that'd be a better way to describe it. You can definitely see here things seem to be trying to get their act together east of Brevard County, give or take. But you just never know if it's organized enough to be defined as tropical or not here as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. So again, let's see here. Water vapor, that doesn't want to come up either, does it? Okay, but visible. We'll stick with this. It does show a different view of this. It is at least 8 times we're able to see some of this, but honestly, this may be a little bit behind based on the timestamp I'm seeing here. So it makes me wonder if there's an issue. I wonder if some of what we were looking at earlier might have been. Yeah, I think some of this satellite data is not coming in properly, so even visible might have been a little bit behind, but radar is not behind here. Of course, Jacksonville's down, but this is picking it off, from the radar there at Moody Air Force Base. So, Nassau, Charlton to 430, 60 mile an hour, wind gusts, penny size, hail, Hilliard, Callahan, St. George, Ratliff, Kings Ferry, Nassau, Village, Ratliff here. So just be mindful, be cognizant of this, obviously. I wish we had the radar closer in. I'd have a better idea of if we need to stick with this, if it really looked like it could do some damage or not. But we're so far away from it, it's kind of, we're just kind of having to guess a little because we're looking 5,000 plus feet up. It looks like there may be some enhancement headed towards St. George there in Charlton County, but it's hard to say for sure. Northeast of Hilliard, looks like the east side of Hilliard could get hit, with some of the nastier storm activity, and that could ultimately get North Callahan there. Into Nassau County could knock down a tree, or so at least some tree limbs here, maybe impact some power in a few backyards. So just be mindful of that. You see an advisory here, western Duval and into northern Bradford County. We're talking about moving south at 20 miles an hour, gust up to 50 in this segment here. And you have more here toward like northern Alachua County here. That looks like it might be trying to strengthen maybe at least enough for an advisory, because I don't see one yet. But there's an advisory down here into northern Marion County. That's what we were tracking with our first one we jumped on for. You see all this lightning around Eureka here and the like. So again, that's something to keep in mind here, obviously, something to bear in mind. So a lot of electrical energy in that area. As we go ahead and keep looking at things, keep tracking things. St. George, Hilliard area off to the east. So really right here and right here. And then right here headed toward Callahan, give or take. This is headed into maybe McClinney eventually. The St. George axis, or maybe just east into western parts of Duval County. So we just have to be cognizant of that. Moving south at 15 miles an hour, what the Weather Service in Jacksonville was, indicating. So, east of Hilliard, we're watching. St. George area, we're watching. Let me go ahead and give you guys the very latest here, obviously. It is 3:54 on this Monday, on this July 14th, 2025. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. We have extreme level of instability here. I mean, this is pretty impressive. Now, I gotta wonder if, it picks up, it's not gonna have every little point here. I gotta wonder if around Stirrup we've dropped a good bit, because, we're at 79 degrees, so I doubt we're quite that high on instability right where we're at here. But in the region, at least parts of it, there was the indication of 5,000 joules per kilogram of surface-based Cape storm energy, which is very impressive here for sure. So as we go ahead and keep looking here, you see north of McClinney, the Hilliard area. Again, pretty nasty activity whenever thunder roars go indoors, but it's not just about that here. We have a warning, means could have some wind damage potential here And you could also have some small hail, maybe penny size, in this type of situation. So, again, that's the storyline right now as we're tracking all of this, as we're monitoring all of this. So just be very mindful here of what we're dealing with. But anywhere in our region where there's lightning, that can be deadly. Like what we had up in Ware County tragically on Thursday there with the 2 fatalities. And then we also had, the very significant injuries at last check anyways, what it, was there. I haven't heard any new updates, but on Saturday in St. Johns County. So for one person there. But as we go ahead and keep looking and keep tracking, very warm areas that haven't got storm accidents, that can lead to some more of this accident becoming pretty robust. It's about that wind threat more than anything, with the severe risk damage, that can lead to power outages or, even, some folks being impacted here. If a tree falls in a car, that can be deadly. Of course, lightning this time of year may really, based on the stats, probably a little bit more likely being deadly, as you don't need a severe storm for that. I mean, you don't technically need it for the tree, to fall either, but it'd be more likely with the higher winds. But with the lightning, you just need a, one strike to be, just hitting somebody there and a tossed object, and that can be fatal, which is so tragic. Lightning sometimes for a while, maybe things have been looking better in the stats here, but this time of year is about the peak season for it. So even if the stats are looking better year to year, this time of year in this part of the country can be very vulnerable, very susceptible to that lightning danger, whatever thunder word. Please try to go indoors. I know it's hard sometimes, if you're in the middle of something, I'm in the middle of something, whatever. It can be kind of hard, but it is for the best here because those cloudy ground strikes can be so significant. They're just incredibly, in a terrible way, hot, and that can be just so awful. As we go ahead and keep looking at things here, I know we're gonna look at this accident towards St. George and Hilliard again. St. George, we're watching, we're tracking. I think we're going to wrap it for now, but we're going to keep watching the situation. I see some enhancement. There could be something here, but it's an overwhelming signature. But there's a little bit of one east side of Hilliard, and then also in towards St. George. So, but even if we have the, wind or not, the lightning threat, maybe even more likely to, in some of the spots at least, to be clouded ground that can start fires as well. So be very mindful of that here. With those strikes on a tree or something like that, or even on a home, which is not good at all, obviously. But, technically that, it is really bad. A house, worse than a tree. But, either one of those are still better than on a person. So, we're going to wrap it for now. And we'll be back here as conditions warrant through the evening, into tomorrow, whatever it takes here. We'll see if this develops tropically. We'll be updating you guys accordingly here as conditions warrant. New advisory just issued for areas there a little bit south of this warning in to McClinney, I believe. Let me just check that. It just came out here on my other source here. Yeah, McClinney, Baldwin, Sanderson, Hugh, and Highland until 4:30. Glen St. Mary in there as well. 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts possible. Severe limits at 58. So 50 possible there with the lightning though too. So make sure you're seeking shelter inside a sturdy structure. Stay safe.